Hello, fellow parents and educators. Thank you for joining me at Education Evolution, where we are disrupting the status quo in today's learning models. We talk about present-day education, what's broken, who's fixing it, and how. I'm Dr. Maureen O'Shaughnessy, your host and founder of Education Evolution and the Microschool Coalition, where we are fiercely committed to changing the narrative, to reimagining the education landscape and creating learning that serves all children and prepares them to thrive. Hi, Patti. I am so glad that you are our guest today. You are a complete disruptive force, and we are all about disrupting the way education is today and making it better for kids. You're also a change agent, and you work wonders with grown-ups and kids. So I am really happy to welcome you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Maureen, for having me. I can't wait to talk to you about all that you've been up to and tell you a little about what I've been up to as well.
So I know that you weave in neuroscience and creativity and fun and come up with some great results, but could you explain a little bit about who you are and the magic that you perform with people?
Sure. I'm a visual thinker and strategic illustrator. And what that means is that I draw live pictures of vision and strategy for individuals and Fortune 100 companies all around the world. I've been speaking for a while. I'm a 3-time TEDx speaker, and I have a couple of really great short videos. One of them is called Draw Your Future, which has gotten many views. And that really has been the process that I've been honing over the past 20 years, trying to make it easy for people to make change. Because I found early on in my life that if I drew a picture of what it was that I wanted, and I put it somewhere I could see it every day, then these miraculous little things would happen. One, I had to, take action on it. So I wasn't just daydreaming my future and that was it. I would do the daydreaming part because fantasy helps your brain focus and just sort for what's fun and interesting. And the things that stand out to your brain are fun and interesting, right? So you want to highlight them using your imagination. But the second one was that if I had the picture in front of me, my brain would stay focused. So I've been really showing people everywhere, anywhere, how to use the process Draw Your Future to help you make change, especially when you feel stuck and you know that something needs to shift. You may not know what or how, but just doing that process, a visual process, will help you get clear.
Perfect. And I know you've done this with big corporations and a lot of really intense and powerful adults, but I also know you've done it with tiny little micro schools of quirky middle and high school kids because you've done it with my kids. So tell me what you think it does for our youth when they go through this process with you.
Well, there's a couple of things. It was so fun to do it with your team. And this year in Kansas City, we've been training people to do the Draw Your Future process in the schools. And today they just gave us the findings from it, and they had done it with 652 kids. And those kids really loved it. And part of the reason they loved it was, one, it was a new way to be thinking about their future that wasn't so controlled. So it's really helpful to open the conversation about what do you want to do. And the second thing is that I partnered with the DeBruce Foundation because they had a tool called the Agilities Work Profiler. And the AWP is a free resource you can get online at agilities.org. And it shows you what your top 3 agilities are. And these two things, one is the agilities helps young adults and young kids to figure out what they're good at. Because I think that's what's hard when you're growing up is you can't figure out, you're just trying to figure out who you are and why you're here and what you're supposed to be doing, right? And what's fun. And everybody asks you all the time, what do you want to do with your life? And, it's really hard for kids who are struggling with their identity to understand how to make a choice. And so the Agilities Work Profiler helps with that piece. The Draw Your Future part is a way of unlocking their ideas for the future for themselves. And it gives the teacher or facilitator and their peers an opportunity to know them better and to see where and how you might direct them to achieve something different. And that's what I think is cool about the process and in combination with the AWP.
That is so important. And something that really keeps me up at night is the mental health of our teens and our young adults. The depression, the anxiety, the overwhelm, especially now with the uncertain health situation in the world. I'm just wondering how you see this tool, because I see definite ways that this tool and this process can help kids with all of the mental health and overwhelm challenges they have right now.
Yeah, it's unbelievable right now. And I saw and heard a little bit of that. I've been doing all these student sessions because I think high school teachers and teachers in general right now are severely challenged having to come up with curriculum. So I've been calling people that I know and offering services to teach art classes or Draw Your Future with them. And one of the things that I noticed that's a common theme is that it is easier for them right now. Most, I would say 80% of the students, it's easier for them right now in this controlled environment because they're home. And so for many introverts, this decreases their stress. But the second thing is that if you give them something to focus on, like a picture of the future or an activity like drawing, it integrates all parts of their brain, and the picture itself will reduce your anxiety. Brain scientists have talked about a long time that if you feel anxious in the middle of the night, you wake up, you don't know what to do, right? They say get a pen and a piece of paper and write down really a list of all the things that you're worried about. And this will allow your brain to dump it out and have it feel like it's safe somewhere, right? Because your amygdala is always stressed out in the environment that we live in. Like we live with a high level of stress, and our kids are really growing up in an environment which is way more stressful than when we were. We could just ride our bikes around the street corner and it was no big deal. But that's really a rarity now. And so it's important to give them concrete things to focus on. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I think that's a really big help. I also heard you when you were talking to the kids address something else that I think is a bigger issue now with social media and with unrealistic expectations and posing and this and that. I think a lot of kids do have stories they tell themselves or limiting beliefs, or I'm not as good or as pretty, or I don't have as many likes on Facebook. Talk to me about the limiting beliefs, because I know you address that with my students.
Yeah, I think that everybody, all your limiting beliefs most of them are formed before the age of 15. So think about that. At our age, we've been carrying around, most of us, the same limiting beliefs for years. And so these young people coming into the world, they've gotten a limiting belief around whether they can draw or whether they're thin enough or beautiful enough or smart enough or good enough. And these things impede their ability to just relax into the moment and let themselves flow, right? And be themselves. And so part of the process, I ask them, what is it that's holding you back? What's challenging you? And then in this new desired reality, how can you shift that? What would that look like if you were to shift it? And then I watch and listen very carefully for their language pattern, because most of us say, if we on one side of our picture, the current state side, we say something like, I'm stressed out, it's overwhelming. And then on the right side, we go to the right side of our picture, and then we want to write or draw something like no stress, right? I just try to coach people that your brain doesn't know the difference between yes and no. It just remembers the image because that's how your brain understands data. It sequences a series of pictures together to help you make sense of the world around you. And that story that your brain makes up becomes your reality. So the secret is to trick your brain into the reality you want. And there are many ways to do it. One is, just as simple as looking in the mirror and saying positive things to yourself. Honestly, this is one way you program yourself. The other is put yourself in that picture of the future, add to it all the feeling that you have and will have in that future state. And then you begin to rewire your brain for that potential future. And of course, in the process, you look at your current state, your desired state, and then you come up with the 3 bold steps you have to take to get there. And that's an important piece too. It's not just about dreaming it. You actually have to put your boots on the ground and get stuff done.
That makes perfect sense. And it seems like just going through the process and then starting to take action would change those limiting beliefs and create a new script. So that sounds really powerful.
Yeah, and I recently, Maureen, I did this 5-day challenge on fear, blasting through your fear. And one of my friends said, I'm not sure that's right for me, because I think you should not blast through your fear. You should really feel your fear. And I wrote her back and I'm like, I agree. But you have to blast through the story that your fear creates so that you can create the story of what you want to be experiencing. Like if we let ourselves, it's good to feel your fear, but then you have to have the courage to go out and do things anyway. If we all sit inside and just keep watching the news about what's happening in our environment, it's not very healthy. Wouldn't you agree?
It's not healthy at all, especially these days. Yes, that makes really good sense. So Patti, one last question. You and I both love whimsy and are playful. So pick up your magic wand, and knowing what you know and knowing the gifts that you share with people, what would you bestow with your magic wand? What would you bestow upon our youth? If you could give them a skill or a superpower, what would you wish for our wonderful youth?
Well, I would just say, I would wish that they would understand that imagination is central to change, that your imagination is the God-given talent, however you understand that you're born with. And it's a tool. It's not just some airy-fairy thing that you have to dream up things. It is a tool that you can use and leverage to shift your environment and shift who you are. And so practice using your imagination to problem solve in any moment. Like if you come up with a challenge in school, you think, I can't do this math problem. Let your imagination show you all the different things and all the different ways you could reconstruct the problem so that you could find a solution or get a better understanding of it. Because your imagination is on 24/7. And honestly, you're daydreaming 70% of the time. And if you harness that tool, you really can go a lot further, a lot faster.
Fantastic. I love that. Our kids having imagination and the power of daydreaming as friends and as tools. That sounds like an awesome gift to bestow upon them. Patti, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are so energetic and you walk your talk so wonderfully. And I'm going to put all of your contact information in the show notes because people need to reach out and connect with you and get a dose of your energy and have happier realities. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for having me. I just love being here. So thank you for everything you do in the world, and all of your listeners, thank you for being here.
Yay! See you later.
See you later.
Wow. Patti Dobrowolski is amazing, and her work with Up Your Creative Genius is inspirational and can help us all reach our new desired realities. I really like her 3-step plan. And if I think it through in terms of education evolution, I see that first step of daydreaming and imagining our goals. We all know our goals are that each student is seen, heard, and valued and has learning that works for him, for her, for them. And then the second step is that we add in some emotion. Oh my gosh, how would it feel to see those kids that feel beleaguered or aren't crossing the finish line or are, but with tons of anxiety or depression? How would it feel to see them graduating, feeling confident, having next steps, owning their strengths, really thriving? So envisioning and adding that emotion, that pumps me up on where I want learning to be heading. But the third step is where a lot of us lose our footing, and we all have to be taking those baby steps toward the imagined goals we have. And that's what we're aspiring to do with Education Evolution. And I'm so glad you're here doing it with us. Thinking about Patti's focus on imagination immediately makes me think about creativity and the seminal work of Sir Ken Robinson. I remember seeing his early TED Talk from, I think, 2006, talking about creativity. And he's gone on and done more TED Talks and more work. He's really convinced that our schools need to be places that foster creativity. And in fact, many of them are stifling or killing it. So I will have his links in the show notes and a lot of other ideas on creativity. We all want our kids to be able to imagine and create. And with the world changing so rapidly, they need to be able to put together new ideas to address the new landscape of this millennium. Patti also talked about limiting beliefs, and I see those through the lens of students, parents, and teachers. Our students often are defined by their peers because that's who's really important to them. And so that comes down to a lot of social media metrics that are very artificial. It's up to us to help them explore their strengths. And the Agilities test that Patti mentioned is a great source for that. We want them to see how wonderful they are and to not be confined by limited stories that peers might be telling. I think our parents sometimes get stuck in limitations. I know that's been something that's happened to me. I see the labels that my daughters have, and I get stuck there and kind of spun around and sometimes even just angsting and powerless. We need to get past the labels and limitations into imagining solutions and moving toward them. Identifying labels and staying stuck there serves nobody. So it's up to us as parents to imagine the best for our kids and be moving toward it. And then teachers. It's so easy for us to get stuck in the system and teaching to standards and state tests. But there are so many ways that we can get out of those limiting beliefs and create what kids need to be functioning and thriving. I know microschools have been a great way for me to do that. And I put that in a book last summer. I think a school within a school in a larger high school made a huge difference when I got to serve a smaller group and still have the resources of a larger school. So I encourage teachers to not let the system become a reason or an excuse to limit how we help kids thrive. Patti's magic wand was really about practicing using imagination to problem solve and to make it a tool that we use all the time. And so a few ways I think that we parents and educators can foster this with our kids. I love when kids do improv. I just think the creativity and the imagination is amazing. And kids really enjoy getting to be goofy with each other. Sometimes educators, when we have kids write from a different character's perspective or take the opposing side on a debate, or when we don't give them a box, like you must write 3 pages, but hey, how many pages do you need to write to get your message across to your audience? I think another way that we help kids is by taking on that Buddhist beginner's mind. Hey, let's all just start from scratch. Let's assume we know nothing about this. It's also really great to wonder with our kids versus telling, I wonder what this could look like. I wonder how this project could be amazing, and not tell them answers, but ponder with them and keep things open and help them get comfortable with ambiguity and with using their imagination. As you can see, imagination, creativity, helping our kids thrive, These are passion topics for me. Thank you for joining today. Please remember to use Patti's formula of imagining, adding emotion, and taking baby steps forward. We can make these goals realities. As always, my partners in disrupting the status quo, I count on all of us to take daily action toward creating learning models that serve all kids. Pick a baby step and go for it. That's all for today. Thanks again for listening. To support the education evolution, subscribe so it lands in your podcast app and gets out to more decision makers. Then rate and review it. For more information and show notes, go to educationevolution.org. Education Evolution listeners, you are the ones to ensure we create classrooms where each student is seen, heard, valued, and thriving. We are in this together, and we need you. Let's go out and reach every student today. Thank you for listening. Signing off, I am Maureen O'Shaughnessy, your partner in boldly reimagining education.